Good afternoon, everyone. This is Corey with Ride Suspension, and today we are talking about more detail on the WP Xplor suspension. Well, they went to the closed cartridge forks. We're going to be talking about why they kind of just missed the spot and why a lot of people go with the pro valves or they go with the cruise tunes, or they kind of create and make them an open chamber fork instead of a single function fork. So we'll start with the basics of the WP Xplor. The WP Xplor forks were designed to be a more overall fork. You have a single function, so you have rebound on one side and compression on the other. Outside of that, they're really comfortable at slow speed stuff. They're really compliant and everything like that. But once you start getting faster, your square edges, your G outs, everything like that, they lack. And the reason is their suspension components on the inside, your mid valves and base valves, are just lacking. So with that, one of the big things is your forks aren't balanced. What I mean by that is the base valves on both forks, they have 0 clicker adjustments. You have no adjustments to how your base valves feel and all that stuff, how your forks end up on the bottom end of the stroke, so on and so forth. You can tell by these two that, of course, the valving is different per each fork, obviously, because one's compression, one's rebound. So your balance is kind of weird and funky. The other part of it, which is the big part of why I suggest swapping to, having a more balanced feel, is you have what's called the compression mid valve, which is just this guy. And all that's in this guy is you have a restrictive cone that sits inside of this. You can see the ports in there. Restrictive cone, and then this is the top port that allows fluid to go through. With that, you're not getting enough tunability or anything like that, because this is sitting in here like this, and it's allowing a certain amount of fluid to go through there, but that's it. There's no progressive dampening, there's no nothing like that. Whereas to the other side, which this is why we swap them out to make them balanced, the other side has your traditional leaf spring style rebound. These have delta shims, and then this has your spring loaded check valve for float and everything like that, for your mid-speed valve. And you run into problems where a lot of your stroke and everything like that is controlled by just one valve, and it causes the same issues you run into when you're running fast or anything like that, where the valving just can't keep up. Say you go with a pro valve or anything like that. What the pro valves have is you have 2 base valves that have compression clickers on the bottom. All of these kits that are essentially the same type of kit, just depending on who you want to go with. All the kits make it where both forks have the same internal components. So both forks have 2 base valves with compression clickers. You have 2 mid valves that have leaf spring style valving, check valves on both sides with your float and everything, where you have more of a finer tuned ability to make your forks work for you. And there's a whole bunch of different types of kits where they have their own thing to them, where you have your cone valve setup, or you have so on and so forth. There's a lot out there, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about where just these forks lack. If you're a standard rider where you're on the bike once a month or anything like that, 9 times out of 10 the suspension will work for you. The suspension will hold up, it'll do everything. But once you start getting to the point where you're riding more, you're faster, even you just want to be more comfortable and not G out and bottom out and blow through your suspension real quick, that's when these kits come into play. You run into, you're looking at these kits, they range from $350 to $600 to get them, and then get them installed depending on the shop. But that's where a lot of these kits, that's where they excel, because of the fact of they're essentially, in the suspension world, they're a cheap upgrade for your forks to make sure that your forks work for you and you have a balance. When it comes to, if you treat suspension like geometry, like it's supposed to be, your suspension's in a triangle. So you have your forks and then your shock. If you have a fork doing something weird and it's not doing something right, it throws off the feeling of the whole bike. But if you have your two forks balanced and set up how they should be, they compress together, they feel together, and one's not overworking the other one, so on and so forth. And that's what helps your bike feel balanced, planted, comfortable in the corners, everything like that. And I know there's gonna be some people out there being like, oh, Showa and KYB did single function forks for a long time. Why isn't KYB, or why doesn't WPs fit up to those standards? The difference between the two is, when it comes to single function forks, normally on the Showas and KYBs, you have one side that is your valving. That is, there's no spring pressure, there's no nothing. One side is your valving, the other side is your springs. Where WPs, you have two springs on both sides, which is great, but you have only one side with that spring have majority of your valving, and then the other side does not. So it's kind of a weird, finicky thing, but it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up to any type of real fast riding or woods riding, or even if you're doing your single track trails and stuff like that, when you hit roots in the trail, it just doesn't hold up. So if you guys have any questions, of course, you can shoot me a message, shoot me a text, Instagram, all that. We're here to answer questions. If you have anything else, leave a comment, and we'll get back to you. Thank you. Remember, ride beyond the limits. This is Corey with Ride Suspension. Have a good one.